Hello, guys. What's happening? Welcome to another episode of RMC Real Men Cry, the podcast. Today, I am joined by Mikey from ScareTrack. Hi, Mikey. How are you?
I'm good, thank you very much, buddy. How are yourself?
I am really good, thank you. I'm loving self isolation. It's great. It's actually I feel more sociable during self isolation than I do during non self isolation, if that's possible.
I'll be honest, the amount of quizzes I've done in the last week have probably beaten the amount of quizzes I've done in real life in 12 months' time.
Quite literally.
Yeah, self-isolation it has some pros, doesn't
Yeah.
it?
So we'll just sort of crack on. So Mikey himself, he again, this is like the episode I did with Chandler, where Mikey sort of come on to talk about experiences of other people and how he's sort of seen other things and how he's just sort of there as a person to really fall back on, kind of thing. So I'll just sort of like open it out and say things like, Mikey, have you, what's your experience of anybody that's gone through any mental health?
Huge, broad aspect of lots of different things. It could be something as small as a little bit of OCD compared to someone who's reached out to me who's been thinking about killing themselves. And we don't want to get too dark and too dingy during this already quite difficult time for all of us, I guess. Anyway, I mean, I've had doubts of experiences myself through maybe 10 years ago now. Obviously, you can go through a rough time in your life that can trigger certain things, and those things sort of just can spiral out of control. The whole anxiety attack was my thing. I'd get those, which sort of led to a sort of just a small dose of depression. I kind of didn't want to believe it. You kind of say to the doctors, whatever. Yeah, I think I'll fix myself. Thanks. I know what I'm doing. And of course, that's not always the safest thing to do, but sometimes that does help. And the fact that any doctor or anyone that can help you can't help you half as much as you can help yourself. And that's the kind of thing I say to any friends that reach out to me. And again, it can be something as little as they're struggling to deal with something at that time, struggling to cope with real day life at that point in their life. But it could also be something a lot darker and a lot harder that sometimes you've got to be the right person to say, maybe I'm not the right person to talk to. Maybe you need to talk to someone else that can say the correct thing, or maybe you need to talk to yourself a little bit and give yourself some home truths. So yeah, there's a whole broad I sort of waffled on for way too long there, but I hope you got something from that.
No, it's fine, mate. I mean, obviously, your experiences are great. I mean, not in a bad way, you know what I mean? But I think it's great that somebody. I think, like as I said to you earlier, I think this is such a great platform to allow anybody who's gone through stuff, even if it's whether it's been a small time in their life or experienced it through other people. This is such a great platform to allow that to happen, and I just think that it's so nice to hear all of these different stories from different people, whether it's that you've gone through something or you've seen it through your friends. And I'm really proud of what I've started here. And I think this is a discussion that needed to happen for a long time. Yeah, especially with the guys in our community.
Of course, absolutely, and that's why I love the name. Real Men Cry podcast, RMC as well. So the theme parks geeks like it, but it is something that I think now more than ever we can open up to, we can chat about. I mean, I don't want to say the word popular, but I'm more known in the scare community. I'm more likely to be known by more people at ScareCon as opposed to the opening at Blackpool Pleasure Beach. Same amounts of people, but I'm more than likely to be known by the scare geeks rather than the theme park geeks. And there is a nice sort of mixture, but people look different on social media, whether it's to be better or for worse. And a lot of people might look at this episode and before they click listen go, well, why is Mikey on there? He always seems so positive and he doesn't really post much negativity. He's got he's happy with his wife and his house and his job that's currently closed because of COVID-19. But I think what's great, and that you're giving a platform to this slightly more niche audience, because mental health is a thing. We're finally, over the last few years, trying to realize that it's a thing, but at the same time not glorifying it and not making it trendy. There's a fine line there where people feel the need that if they don't have something that many people do have, then it's a bit like when people think they're ill when they're not, when, oh, I've got a cough, so I must have corona. No, it's one of those things that it needs to be discussed and can be discussed as openly as someone saying, oh, I might feel a little bit poorly today. So it's great that you've got a platform, and I'm hoping that more people take you up on the offer of coming on, and again, not glorifying any situation. In fact, you're nullifying the situation by trying to just keep it calm and keep it civilized and keep it understanding, as opposed to, I'm going to write loads of random stuff on my keyboard and let the world know how unhappy I am, or X, Y, and Z.
Yeah, I think it's so important that like you say, obviously you're more known in the scare community, which is obviously how I know you. But I think, obviously I know you've also branched out over the past year into doing CoasterTrack and things like that, which is obviously great. So I think, I just think it's really important that as a community of coaster enthusiasts or scare enthusiasts, I know within the scare community as well, there's a lot of guys who suffer from things and aren't necessarily at a point where they feel safe and comfortable to talk about their feelings, and nobody should feel like that. You should feel like you can openly discuss things and say to people that are close to you, this is how I'm feeling. I mentioned it before that when I first started going through stuff 10, 11 years ago, there wasn't a lot known about mental health in general, not just mental health within men, but there wasn't enough known about mental health. And obviously what's great now is that we do have things like this podcast or the XYZ podcast, or like National Health England, that talks about mental health. And I'm really chuffed that this has been received so positively so far, because I'm really passionate about allowing people to talk about things like this, because I think it's so important. Yeah,
absolutely. And it's nice that it's like I say, it's nice that it's sort of more, I'm not going to say the word globally because I can't speak for other countries, but nationally at least, during this awkward time of COVID-19, to all the listeners, this is getting recorded on the 1st of April.
Hey.
Happy April Fools. And it's basically sort of week one of, we're nearly hitting a full week of lockdown during the coronavirus of 2020, which I'm sure will go down in history. And I am seeing so much, although there's so much negativity in the world, it's bringing the positivity out in people, and it doesn't stop at just our niche thing of theme parks and screen parks, or it doesn't stop with the gamers or the comic geeks or wrestling fans, theater buffs. It's just universally, it seems to be at the minute, that I am seeing the posts of do this to help your mental health during lockdown, or maybe try this to help your mental health during lockdown. And I'm liking that it's becoming open, that people are listening about it and talking about it. And that's what's great about this now, because our communities and the screen park and theme park community do mix quite a lot. That it's in every community, so why not let's talk about it with like-minded people in our community.
Yeah, 100%. And I think that obviously, like someone like yourself, who you said obviously like 10 years ago you'd gone through stuff, but that never leaves you. That still has an impression on you and how you go about your life from then, really. So even though
definitely,
even though obviously it was 10 years ago, that still impacted you and still was a way for you to sort of see things differently and probably discuss things differently with different people. Yeah,
100%. Yeah, definitely. I mean, it can put things in huge perspective as well. And I don't want to sound like the old man here. I'm 30, married, And so, you know, what I was going through, which was more like when I was probably 19, 20, my issues then seem very different to my issues now. Yet those issues back then affected me mentally, mental health wise, more so than the issues, you know, bothering me now. Back then it was, you know, I lost a couple of things at one go. My life did sort of get turned quite upside down quite dramatically, which led me to, you know, a year or so of darkness. But, you know, issues that you have later on in life, or even earlier on in life, that could have been worse or just different. Like I say, it's how you perceive those issues and how you tackle them. At the minute, I'm currently jobless because of COVID-19. I've got rent to pay that I'm wondering where that money's going to come from. I don't know when we're going to be allowed all outdoors again. It feels like the worst thing that's happened since World War II. But we're all in the same boat, and that's my coping mechanism on that scenario of, you know, if I can't afford my rent, I'm pretty certain everyone else in my street isn't going to be able to, because we're all in the same boat. And that's what's good to think when you potentially do have those elements of darkness of, I'm upset because this has happened, or I'm feeling down because this has happened, or sometimes you don't even know why you're in a depressed state or in an anxious state, or you just don't know. But it's putting things into perspective. It's thinking, well, I can get out of this. I felt like this before, so I can feel better again. It's all just perspective and having coping mechanisms, which I think it helps me anyway.
Yeah, 100%. I mean, one good thing, one positive that I suppose has come out of this so far, you can kind of see it as a positive, is obviously recently the nominations for this year's Scare Awards happened, and I feel very proud to have been a part of one of the screen parks that have been nominated quite a few times, and I'm really proud of that. And I think it's great, and well done to everybody that was nominated, because it was such a great year in terms of the scare industry last year. And obviously, Mikey, I know you're very heavily what's the word? You've got a big input in that industry and in that community.
That's nice. I'd like to think so, but who knows?
Well, I mean, you run ScareTrack. You're like, it's like the biggest independent scare podcast. I imagine. I haven't seen many other scare podcasts. So
we're the first in the UK, first in Europe, and biggest in Europe, I guess.
Yeah.
And I guess so, but I'll shut up because I won't be able to get my head through the door. But yeah,
but yeah, I mean, obviously that's great that at least, even though obviously with everything that's going on with COVID-19, we're still able to virtually have the Scare Awards and have some sort of positivity and some we can celebrate the achievements of the scare industry from last year, which I think is fantastic. So I applaud Michael and just the whole Scare Tour team and ScareCon team, because that, like, obviously we were going to ScareCon this year. I was going to ScareCon and it would have been really great, and it was really fun last year, and I was looking forward to it. But I would rather that we're all healthy, not when we're not all healthy.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, it's you know, it's crazy that we're talking about, you know, on your podcast, Your Men Cry, right now, because of this whole scenario that's happening is going to be a very testing time for people with any kind of illness, whether it be physically or mentally, emotionally, you know, absolutely anything, because it is such an unprecedented time that we don't know what exactly is happening. We don't really know when it's going to end. But what we can do is look at the positives. It's like you say, first of all, I'm going to miss out on ScareCon and HorrorCon and Download Festival and blah, 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 blah. But if you look back on this later in life, you want to make sure you stay indoors, make sure you stay safe, make sure you continue as close as we can to normal when all this is over. It would just be a small blip in if I live to be 80, this would be just a few short months within my whole big life. And it's what helps me get through that. And the fact that right now is really weird. But like you just said, ScareCon isn't going ahead, but the Scar Awards are, because we've got Facebook Live, we've got Zoom, we've got Skype, you know, I mean, when only 70 years ago, when it was World War II, they were in the bunkers for days on end with nothing but a pencil and paper, maybe, or playing cards. Yeah, to contact a friend down the street, you had to send a letter sometimes. It's one of those. Whereas now we are very lucky, and although social media can be the root of all evil, and I've seen what some of people write on Twitter. Twitter is a breathing ground for hate, but what can spew hate and spew negativity can do so much more with the positive end of things. It can be social media to me is such a positive thing. It's how I find out all the latest positive news, or how I find out where the new coaster is going to get built. I can speak to my friends randomly on the House Party app and just gate crash their conversations for fun, or we can do all these quizzes, like you're doing a quiz as well, and we can. I mean, we're not lucky that Disney Plus has just arrived as well. We've had Netflix, we got Sky, we got there's so many outlets. And although it seems a little bit crazy that the vast majority of us are staying indoors, things could be worse. Things could be a lot worse. We can all get food. We can all have a roof over our head because of the things that the government are doing to help everyone out as such. It could be worse. It's not the Black Plague that's taken over us. It's not the 1700s. Things will be okay. And Sorry again, I ran again.
No, it's fine. Like you say, I do agree. I think that this is just a little blip in all of our lives. And I think we'll look back on this in 60 years' time and be like, yeah, do you remember when coronavirus happened and how we just were more sociable during that whole time of isolation than we ever have been throughout any other time. But that's the only good thing that I really like about this self-isolation and the quarantine, is that I am talking to a lot more people. I am literally, all my group chats now are popping all the time, whereas before it was always really quiet, or like now we're always video FaceTiming or like on Skype or whatever. And that's sort of become a real positive, is that now there are more people talking to each other instead of just not talking and being so self-focused and all that. And obviously, everyone's going through it, everyone's in the same boat. Everyone's either not working, or there's a fear of losing your job, or all of that kind of stuff. But then you do look at the positives and you do think, actually, do you know what? I've got a great lot of friends. I've got a great support network. Everyone is going through the same thing. It's not just me. And I think we can all enjoy it. And I think once this is all over, we'll all be really happy, and we'll all probably go to the pub and have a nice lot of drink. But I think we will all just get through this as one community, as one lot of human beings. We will get through it, and we'll be better for it. We'll be stronger for it, because we've got through things in the past. Like you say, we've got through the wars. We can get through coronavirus.
Yeah, and hopefully that it has a positive outcome on us. I mean, things like this crazy stuff brings out the best and the worst in people, and like I say, that's why it's a testing time for every individual, but also those that suffer from certain different mental health or like I say, any health issues whatsoever. It's harder for Hannah, my wife, to get her inhalers at the moment because she's got asthma. It's just that little bit harder. I suffer from a few conditions regarding my back muscles, my backbones, and all that palaver. So getting my painkillers is a little bit harder than it used to be. But like I say, it brings out the best and the worst in people. It seemed that most of the worst people are the people that are fighting over toilet roll, and that seems to have ended now. But the positive thing is the likes of people doing mass sing-a-thongs on their phones, and I mean, a couple of weeks ago, we wouldn't have ever. Yeah, I'm going to say a couple of weeks, even a month ago. So we wouldn't imagine the kind of life that we're actually living in now. And although it hasn't changed rapidly, it's not like all of a sudden there's no running water, or there's no food, or there's no electricity. It's not like a monumental day-to-day living thing has changed in our lives. I can still wake up and make a cup of coffee and whatnot. But if we'd said to each other a month ago that lots of people would be wearing masks outdoors and gloves, and only 6 people are allowed in Tesco at a time, and you have to queue up 2 meters apart from each other, and every single big mass meeting was cancelled, and then they tell us to stay indoors for 3 weeks unless you're a key worker. Like, all of that, to any of us, if we started talking about that when everyone met up at, you know, Blackpool opening weekend, you think we're crazy. You think, are you actually serious? Like, there's documentaries of these people who think the end of the world are happening, and they have bunkers full of, you know, toiletries and food and backup batteries and all that palaver, and we all looked at them like they're crazy. And now who's laughing? Those, because they
Exactly.
have the food, they have it. Like, you know, although it's not an end of the world, it is one of those. It's a global pandemic that no one saw coming. And yeah, it brings out the best and the worst in people, but trying to bring it full circle on what we were talking about with social media and our community as well, being friendly to each other and chatting more to each other, it can hopefully have a positive outcome. And, you know, as soon as this is over, Drayton Manor mentioned it on their on their social media. They made it the best way. As soon as this is over, every theme park will be full, every pub will be busy, every theatre seat ticket will be sold out. It will go back to normal, and I think that's what everyone who's struggling at the moment just needs to think of the long game, think of how great this is all going to be when it's over.
Yeah, 100%, exactly. I think, like you say, it will go back to normal. It's going to take time, but it will go back to normal. And I think everyone it's weird, because 3-4 weeks ago, I was at a very nervous, anxious point where I was like, oh my gosh, if everyone keeps panic buying all of this toilet roll or all of the food, we're going to go back to World War II, and we're going to be given ration cards, and they're going to say you're only allowed this amount a week or whatever, or this a lot day. And I was in a very anxious point, because I was like, you know, how is that going to affect people? People, like, most of us haven't experienced something like that. There are obviously a few people who are still alive who experienced that in the war, but majority of the country never experienced that. And that would be something that would really wake everybody up. And luckily, like you say, you know, now things are starting to slowly trickle. And I went to the supermarket today and there was loads of toilet roll, and I was like, what? There's actually toilet roll. This is insane. But that's great. I think we are as a community, as a society, as people, we're starting to notice that we can't keep panic buying. We can't keep going out every single day. We can't keep doing things that the government are saying we can't do. We have to start staying indoors more. We have to start kicking this together so that we fight this. And then the quicker it's over, the quicker we stay indoors and do what they're saying, the quicker it's all over, and the quicker we can get back to those theme parks, get back to those screen parks, the quicker all of this, everything can go back to normal. But we have to, it starts with us. We have to be the people that start that.
Absolutely, yeah. And I think it's slowly already starting. I think people, you know, my place of work has been forced to close because it's classed as a leisure. So we've turned it into a food bank. You know, 3 weeks ago, I never would have imagined that would have happened, because you just don't think of that sort of stuff. But yeah, I mean, people are rallying for people in need, and people are just being kinder to each other for the most part anyway. Hopefully we see a little bit more peace across countries, because, you know, this is something that's happening to literally every single country in the world. The whole, you know, if there's aliens looking down on us, they're feeling sorry for us right now, because this is a whole global thing. So hopefully it just brings a little bit more peace to everyone, and that's, you know, that's something something else that you might not need to feel as anxious about or as concerned about, and it could hopefully help us all out in the long run.
Yeah, I agree, and I'm happy that now things are starting to slowly calm down. It makes me feel a bit more. It makes me feel better about everything, and I have stopped watching the news constantly as well, because I always feel like the more you watch the news and the more you're hearing about it, the more that you're actually putting the bad thoughts in your head, and you don't want to hear you don't want to hear about this 24/7, because it's not very healthy to hear everything that's going on with it all the time. Especially
Definitely.
yeah, especially if you are someone with anxiety or depression, because it's just going to put you in a bit of a muddle, and you're going to get more panicked about it than you need to.
Definitely. I mean, I'd probably say I was looking at my own point of view. You don't really realize the way you're acting until you look back on it and evaluate it. I'm probably coping better with this whole coronavirus pandemic now that I mean, I go out twice a week for work because I'm classed as it's not classed as a key worker, but it's key work because we're help feeding children and families in need. So it's, if the police ask, it's one of those we're allowed to open as a food bank, and it's one of those things that we're doing to help the community. So although I leave the house a couple of times a week to go and do that, I am for the most part locked indoors, and I'm actually coping so much more better now, myself mentally, as I was beforehand, because I was going to work every single day. We were putting new structures in place, like the washing of the hands, the hand sanitizer. We were taking everyone's temperatures. They came in. I was reading the news every 10 minutes. I was getting updates because I didn't know when we were going to have to close. And if we have to close, what's going to happen? That the government took their time saying that they're going to help and put people on furlough employment. And there's so many things, and then the whole hand washing thing, all they did, I was actually cutting my hands to shreds with the amount that I was washing my hands. I was literally coming home after work and my hands are bleeding from the amount of scrubbing I've been doing. And that's probably my OCD tendencies. Like I say, when we first started this interview, that people can have, it can be really severe stuff or really non-severe stuff, and literally little things. I've picked OCD up from my stepdad. I know I have, because I saw him do OCD things when I used to live with him. So there's certain things that I've copied, and washing my hands because I was told to do it by the government. I thought this will fix it all. I went crazy. I was washing my hands every 12 minutes, but like proper scrubbing. And like I say, that my hands were just getting torn to shreds. So it's good to look at the way you act and why you've acted that way, I find, when it comes to my own health. And I'll look back and think, right, why have I bought all that? I probably didn't need to buy X, Y, and Z. I probably didn't need to wash my hands that time because I just sanitized. I didn't need to do that. But it was a good idea for me to do that. And okay. And now that makes sense. In my mind, I've made sense of my nonsensical stuff. And I'm, if anyone takes anything from this today, not saying that I'm not a counselor, I'm not telling people how to deal with their problems, but the key things that have helped me is just putting things in perspective, thinking there's an end to this. Even if we weren't talking during the coronavirus, there's an end to how you're feeling right now. It can feel better, it could feel worse, it can get better again. And it is good just to sort of think, well, why did I think like that? It's a bit like when you look on your time hop and you're like, why the hell did I have hair like that 5 years ago? What the hell was I thinking? And you can think the same for what you were wearing, for what kind of makeup you were wearing. I was a bit of an emo as a kid. I'm thinking, what was I thinking back then? And we can do that with our mental health and our decisions. And I think that helps me. That helps me sort of get over the demons that we sometimes have.
Yeah. And I think what's great is both myself and yourself, we've both gone through stuff. You've obviously come out of it at the other end, and you've not had something that's been as tough since. I hope. And I think it's quite refreshing to hear the positives and to hear from people like yourself who have gone through stuff, and you've got through it, and you're at the end of that, and there is a light at the end of the tunnel. Like you say, this is only now. Everything that you're feeling it now. Hopefully in 10 years time, you will look back at it and go, why did I feel like that? This was something that I should have felt.
Well, you may feel that in 10 minutes time, or in 10 hours time, or in 10 days time. You just don't know. It all depends on what, how you're feeling and what you're feeling and the way you can manage those feelings, I guess.
Yeah, exactly. And for anybody who's listening, who is struggling, and obviously, like Mikey said, we can't advise you on things because we're not professionals. This is just a conversational podcast. But I have left links to loads of different charities and organizations who do everything for mental health. And obviously, even if you can't you feel like you can't talk to someone like a friend or a family member, go on to one of those organizations, because they are fantastic and the work that they do is amazing. Talking from experience myself, I've spoken to Samaritans a few times and they are amazing, and they really do listen, and that's what they're there for. So if you are struggling whilst you're listening, just remember that you aren't alone, that there are loads of people feeling the same things as you are, and there's always help out there, I guess. Yeah, and just look at the positives. You're only going to feel like this, hopefully, for a short time, and it's not going to last forever. I think that's sort of like a positive boost there, I guess, I imagine.
Yeah, definitely. There's an end to everything. There's always an end to something, and it's hopefully always a positive end. You can not suppress it, but learn to deal with it in different ways. And like I say, it's all perspective. Like speaking to other people might put your thoughts collectively in perspective. I was going through some issues where, like I say, I lost my job, I lost my girlfriend, I just moved into my own house, I was just started a new uni course. Everything was all a little bit crazy at the time, and like I say, it was the anxiety attacks that got me more so than anything. But then 10 years later, I'm older and I want to say wiser, but I don't think that's true, but more boring. and then there's people reaching out to me, and I did an episode on ScareTrack over a year ago now, speaking to a scare actor. He won't mind me saying this, named Dan Thorpe. He scare acted. He's a really good guy, really kind-hearted guy. And we did a whole episode about mental health on ScareTrack because he literally poured his heart out to me. And the issues he brought up, mine just felt so worthless compared to the things that he was going through. But you should never feel that. You should never feel that your issues are worse than others or better than others or anything like that. It's not a competition. It's just on what affects you. Now, like I say, with my OCD stuff, there's certain things in the house that my wife Hannah drives me crazy. And although she sees no issue with it, well, for me, it's something like, because it's an OCD, it's a trigger, it's something that is really effective to me. Now, that doesn't mean that it's nothing illegal, it's nothing bad, it's nothing emotionally draining, no one's physically hurt me. And people go through all these things, from rape and abuse or torture or anything, or emotional bullying or cyberbullying. There's so many different things that we as human beings inflict upon each other for some reason. But no one should ever think that, well, my issue is just because I've lost my job and whatnot. No, that's a big issue. If that affects you, that affects you. If your favorite game on the Xbox has decided to delete itself, if that's a big issue to you, that is a big issue to you. It doesn't mean that you have to, tell the world about it. But if that helps you, and people go, it's okay, try this, and it might boot it back, or they might just send you a heart emoji. Everything is fine. Anyone's allowed to deal with it in any way they can, any way they want to, and never feel that your issues are either worse or worse than others, or not as bad as others. Each individual issue is, it's bespoke to you personally.
Yeah, exactly. And I know people who, when I first started this podcast, I was talking to them about mental health, and they said to me that talking about mental health is a sign of weakness, and that really shocked me, which was really one of the good things, one of the positive things that I took about why I wanted to set this up, because I wanted to show people and give other people the power. There's power in owning your feelings and owning your emotions and owning how you feel about things, because that's your feelings, that's your thoughts. They are so important. They're so bespoke, like you said, they're bespoke to you, and nobody should make you feel less of a person. I had this big thing when I was working at so I did a couple of years at Winter Wonderland as an actor, and there was this one time, the first year that I was there, I was having this big thing about being told that we should man up and deal with the things that we were going through. And that really set me off, because I hate that phrase. I think that phrase is
Yeah, big
just
time.
disgusting. I think it's an awful phrase. What does man up mean? There's no right way or wrong way to be a man. You could be, whatever you define as a man is your definition. What I define as a man might be something completely different to somebody else, and that's totally fine. And that's your feelings, and that's your thoughts, and there's nobody should make you feel so small that you don't want to do anything, or that you just feel like the worst person in the world. And that's something that obviously I've experienced, and I'm pretty sure loads of other people have experienced. And I think that phrase is awful, and I wish that it was banned and that nobody ever said that phrase ever again. But unfortunately, that's not going to happen, because that's the culture. That's how people have always been brought up. I suppose when I was younger, I used to say that phrase until I realised, I was going through stuff and being told to man up and deal with it. But I think there is such a power in owning your own feelings, and you shouldn't be told how to feel, and you shouldn't allow someone to tell you how to feel. If you feel a certain way, then that's your feelings, that you have the right to those feelings. And I just think that hopefully people will see that talking about your feelings isn't weak, isn't a negative thing. It's positive, it's uplifting, it makes you look at things in different perspectives. I know in my case it does. If I talk about how I feel, it makes me think about how actually I could be far worse than what I am. Or I look at things, like this whole coronavirus thing. My biggest fear isn't even about myself, it's about people like my nan or homeless people.
Absolutely. Yeah. It's your anxiety and your demons can be not focused on you. It can be worrying about others, worrying about the world, worrying about individuals, worrying about situations, worrying about objects or places. It's everyone's worried about theme parks right now, or I'm worried about my place of work, or it's all relative, isn't it?
Yeah, and like you say, obviously at the moment we're all worried about when we're going to be able to get back out there and go to theme parks and go to scare events and do things that we want to do. But like I say earlier, I think the quicker we deal with this, the quicker it will be over, and the quicker we can go back to normal instead of this dragging on and on and on. It does worry me that people are still not focusing on beating this as quickly as we can, but we're just a small cog in a giant machine, and I think if we all band together, we're gonna beat this, and we will beat it, because we will. That's just fact. We are gonna beat this.
Yeah, and again, it'll be just one of those blips in time, which and it happens, whether it be wars, whether it be every 100 years, there seems to be a pandemic. Every 1,000 years, sorry. It's all relative. It all happens. And it will, this year it's Corona, then we'll be fine for 100 years and something else may happen, or, we're leaving the EU, or that could be positive or negative, or, there's just loads of things that could or can't happen. But at the minute, I hate seeing taglines that are just scaremongering taglines of we will be in isolation for a year. And then you look at it, it's like, well, no, it just means that we might need to be careful with washing our hands for a year. Or what they're basically saying there is that we think we're going to get a jab to make people better, or to make, have the flu jab, but it won't be available for a year. So, and then you'll have someone else saying, well, I saw China's theme parks opened up yesterday. Obviously they went into different kinds of lockdowns, but then you can argue that they're such a bigger country than us, and there's so much involved, and it's so relative. And like you say, we're just a small cog in a massive big bunch of cogs at the minute. We just got to wait it out, and hopefully people people support each other when doing so.
And we are going to beat this. This is, like you say, it is a blip, and we are going to go back to normal. And as soon as we do, it'll be very exciting. So you were saying about, obviously, you're more well known within the scare community, but I think you're starting to get more you're recognised now within the coaster community as well. Everybody that I was with at Blackpool seemed to recognise you. I love CoasterTrack. I love ScareTrack. I listen to it regularly. I think it's a great podcast. And it's just great. It's something that's positive to be listening to whilst we're in isolation, and whilst you've got thousands of episodes to listen to for ScareTrack and CoasterTrack.
We've got a few now. No, I appreciate the kind words. Thank you, definitely. It's funny that you mentioned CoasterTrack because, like I say, we're recording on April 1st, April Fool's Day, and CoasterTrack actually started off as an April Fool's years ago. Because that there has been a resurgence of theme park podcasts. There's loads in America, and the UK has jumped on that bandwagon within like the last 2 years or so. So I actually just made a joke to think, well, I'm going to do it as well. And it turned out that people were quite upset when they found out it wasn't a joke, because they like the ScareTrack sort of platform, that they wanted a CoasterTrack one to coincide with that. And that's why it's a similar sort of layout, similar sort of formula and what we use. We try to not take ourselves too seriously, but finding the line where we're not taking the mick, if that makes sense. So it's all relative as well. As again, people probably, if you have a drinking game, if you've got a drink in your hand, the amount of times I've said relative, take a shot, because I've said it too much. But it is sort of relative. So if I'm going to be interviewing someone who runs, so I was chatting to Mark Lofthouse, who is the creative director of the brand new Screen Park, Screenfields. I'm going to be having a relatively professional conversation, interview with a bit of personality involved as well. Whereas if we're going to be doing just a random CoasterTrack vlog from Phantasialand, me and my wife, there's going to be a lot more humor, a lot more relaxed approach to it. And I'd say 99% of our listeners or watchers like the fact that they know what kind of style episode they're going to get. If it's just a discussion episode with me and the ScareTrack team, it's going to be quite an off-the-wall random podcast, but there's going to be elements of truths and elements of some professional chat. Whereas if it's something like interviewing someone, there's going to be more so of a professional side of it. And I think people are realizing now that we've had people say, "Oh, you're just making it into the Mikey and Hannah show on your YouTube channel." Well, guess what? YouTube people follow YouTubers because of the person, not because it's at Alton Towers. Opening weekend of Blackpool Pleasure Beach, there were loads of vlogs, and I watched loads of them because I love them. It's what I like to do to escape. But some people are going to watch this person's vlog over this person's vlog because they prefer the person, they prefer their presenting style, they prefer their type of equipment, or the way they portray themselves over someone else. And I think that's what is, over the years of me doing ScareTrack and how our brand, in air quotes, has grown, we've sort of seen the steady medium of what you can have between the professional side of things, the more question answer style things, alongside the let's have a laugh, let's not take ourselves too seriously. There's a fine line, and I think with the different kind of stuff we do, whether it be interview episodes or discussion episodes, or we're doing vlogs or scare cams, or our movie reviews, there's always going to be a mixture of things, and I think most people seem to like it.
Yeah, I would agree with that. I really enjoy what you guys do, and it must be a testament to the fact that obviously you started CoasterTrack as a joke, yet CoasterTrack was nominated for a Cupcake and Coasters Clamshell Award.
Yeah, that was really cool. That was it's nice to see that there's some love there, definitely, because there's, like I say, there's lots of theme park podcasts out there here in the UK and within our community now, and we all cover similar stuff, and it's nice to see yours is obviously covering something more along the lines of mental health within the community. So you have like your sub-genre with it, which is great, and it's nice to see that sort of stuff popping up. But you know, I'm just a guy that likes roller coasters, or I say it all the time, I'm just a guy with a microphone, and people listen to it. It's awesome. But yeah, to be shortlisted along with Hang Time and the Drop as well, it was great to do a little bit of the
all the diss tracks.
The diss tracks. Yeah, that was. I'll tell you what, that was so bizarre. I woke up one morning to see like the Drop do a track, and then Hang Time Matt did a diss track, and I was like, oh no, now I've got to do something, haven't I? But again, I think that I'm and a huge kudos to the Drop and the Hang Time guys, and we jumped in, and then loads of other people. We sort of opened it up to the floor, so other people joined in as well. I think that had a lot to do with how much nicer the community felt going into this season than it did previous seasons.
Yeah,
because Twitter can be a breeding ground for hate, and I've been an advocate. I'm a huge advocate for social media. I love it, but there's parts of it which I despise, and Twitter is a breeding ground for love, and it's a breeding ground for hate and disgust. And I've seen some pretty nasty, crappy things from our community. I'm not going to lie. Some things that I think are downright disgusting, disgraceful, horrible, and vile. But everyone makes mistakes. Everyone says the wrong thing. Anyone can take things out of context in word form. Me and my wife argue all the time over text, whereas I think I'm saying something nice and she took it the total wrong way, because context can't be, you don't know the context via text. So I think it's when we started doing the diss tracks and everyone else started joining in, the community just had a great big laugh together. And we laughed at each other or with each other. Everyone else joined in. It got on some, the collaborations that are happening during this coronavirus lockdown is great. So yeah, I'm really quite proud in the fact that, again, I can't take any credit really because it was the Drop in Hang Time. But that sort of, I think, gave us all a little bit of a positive look on social media within our community.
Yeah, I agree 100%. It was just great. I enjoyed watching all the diss tracks, and I thought it was really funny. I thought, like, I think you said it in the diss track, or Hannah said it, that you're like the dad who's just coming in, and I absolutely, I just loved it. I was like, it just shows how lighthearted the community can be, and how we can all just have fun. And that's just what we needed. We needed that bit of laughter. I loved watching all your diss tracks, and just, it was such a great laugh. So thank you for providing some smiles and some laughter during the close season.
It was fun. I've never wrote a rap before, and I ended up doing two in the end, like another diss track back. So it was fun. But the best thing I find out of anything when it comes to comedy and all that, I used to do comedy. I used to do stand-up comedy years ago, and not anymore, because I kept getting beat in competitions. But I got beat by people like Joe Lycett, and Will from the Inbetweeners beat me one year as well.
Well, that's a cool story to talk about, isn't it?
Tom Rosenthal. Yeah, there's a few people in like the there's a few people that I used to gig with that I now see on TV shows, or I saw Darren Harriott the other day on Live at the Apollo, and part of me is so happy that these people that I used to gig with are doing really well. Then the other part of me hates them because I wanted to be on that stage. But it's what I've always found, and I think this works now with when I do my podcasts and when I interact. It's always funnier when you can take the mick out of yourself more than taking the mick out of anyone else.
Yeah, I definitely agree with you. I'm always the butt of the jokes within my group.
Yeah.
And like, I'm that sort of person now where I can take the mick out of myself, and I will allow people to take the mick out of myself, and it doesn't affect me, because you've got to be able to laugh at yourself. And I think if you can laugh at yourself, then you're like not stronger, but you can just have a bit more of a laugh. If you can laugh at yourself, then you can have more of a laugh, and you can be a bit more playful. Definitely. And you can allow yourself to wind other people up and wind yourself up. And I think I mentioned it before as well, that I think laughter is such a key positive thing. If you don't laugh, even if you're like in the worst part of your life, you're going through the darkest thing, laughter is such a good medicine. And
she's going to say the exact same thing.
Yeah.
Laughter is the best medicine.
Laughter is the best medicine to have, and I just wouldn't be anywhere right now without the people that got me through last year. Particularly, you know, obviously my specific group of friends who I've met through theme parks. Without those guys, I wouldn't have like been as happy as I have been for a long time. I think it's just great that you can take the piss out yourself and you can have a laugh and you can just enjoy the banter. So on that positivity, I think that's a great place to wrap up. It's been absolutely fantastic to talk to you, Mikey.
Yeah, I really appreciate you asking me on.
Oh, thank you so much. I mean, it's been really great. I've got to know a bit more about you and about what you've gone through. And I'm sure hopefully all the listeners have as well. And if you haven't already, check ScareTrack out. They have some amazing podcasts, especially if you love, like I do, if you love horror mazes and things, all of that. Do check ScareTrack out. They are genuinely, it's a great podcasting channel. And obviously you've got CoasterTrack now as well. So do check that out. Send them a follow, send them some love, because they are brilliant. But again, thank you so much for being on, Mikey. And I will see all of you guys with another podcast real soon. Goodbye.